Hello, animals, and welcome to my hopes and wishes for the Animal Crossing Switch coming later this year. I know there are a lot of these videos out there, and I've watched several of them, and I have a few ideas I haven't heard of, that things I would like to see. Um, I'm also going to cover a couple things that I have heard of and put my little explanation on them. Um, there's a lot of things out there. Some of the ideas are kind of crazy. Some of them are kind of normal. Some of them might be a little shocking. But one thing you have to remember is you don't want to make Animal Crossing a game that's not Animal Crossing. And so any changes that you would make would be smaller changes, even though the Switch will be capable of so much more. You should uh, you should you should get things that doesn't upset the delicate balance of what Animal Crossing is and how it's become such a fan favorite over the many iterations and many years that it's been going. One of the things I think we should have is a second story balcony. Now, you could go out on the balcony yourself and take a picture, or you could go out there with friends who are visiting, or even when the animals come and check out your house, you could take them up on the balcony and take a picture with them. And it'd be nice to be able to hang pictures on the walls too. But there would have to be some changes. Obviously, you can see in this picture here and many of the other type houses that it wouldn't look right to have a balcony on it. Well, you could either make the second story larger on your houses, or conversely, you could make it to where when you go out on the balcony, you look smaller. You and your friends look smaller, so it fits in with the house a little bit better. I just think that would be an interesting addition to the game. And another thing I'd like to see is that we'd be able to set furniture outside. I think that would be really cool. Uh, you could maybe set up a chair and go fishing on the river or down by the sea. You could have a patio or some kind of yard, and you could place things in your yard. Sure, I know it's rife for people doing bad things with it or mean things with it or just crazy things, but I think there are also a lot of people who would be very creative and do some amazing things with it, and different furniture. They've already got outside furniture and cookouts. You could do all kinds of things, and and it would be interesting. It would be an addition without making too wild of changes. And you could have people over, and they'd sit in your chairs and visit with you. I think that'd be a pretty cool idea. Next, I think an interesting small change would be a back door in your house from the inside and from the outside. Whatever room is in the back, it could have a back door if you wanted to buy a back door for it. It could You could come in from around the back of your house and enter that way, and likewise you could leave through the back of your house. I think that would add an extra dimension to it, and depending on how they work the camera angles, it could be visually interesting as well. Now here's one that I've heard talk about, and it's a little bit controversial, and I totally understand why, and that's cooking or farming and making recipes and things like that. Uh, I kind of like the idea if you were careful with it. If you didn't turn it into a farming game or a cooking game, it could be an interesting addition. You could use the fruits on the trees. You could maybe grow a few different crops, and and you could have a little garden area, or perhaps plant the crops in different areas. However, the game wanted you to do it, and then there might be another building where there was someone in there who was a cook who would teach you ingredients. Maybe you'd have a recipe book. Maybe you'd have a special refrigerator that you could keep all your ingredients in, and you could make special dishes for them for bells, but not for a lot of bells. And it would be an interesting side quest. Uh, I think it could be fun to have stuff with your animals, have stuff to eat, have stuff to do, have stuff to make. You could not only use things that you grew, the vegetables and the fruit from the trees, but you could maybe use fish, maybe even the bugs, certain bugs. It depends, and your animals might want some very odd dishes that you could prepare either with them or for them. And next thing on the list would be lots of new items and animals. That's on now almost everybody's list. I think it's a good idea. It doesn't change the game. It just adds to the game. You can do more bugs and fish and just things. You can make your house look different. A lot of different animals. Maybe with the Switch, you'd be able to have bigger personalities and more things for them to say. That would be very important and make the game a lot different and surprising. And perhaps they would have a whole sets of things that they would say at different times of the year, that or maybe only in one year, and you'd never hear that again for another 5 years or something like that. You could have a lot of different personalities. I think that could really add to the game. I think another interesting thing that you wouldn't want to overdo. I realize this is Link here, but you wouldn't want to overdo this. But it could be interesting to have maybe some big boulders at the side of the town, and later on you can have a project to where you move them or have them moved or even do some demolition or something, and it opens up a little area that you can have a little camping area, or they'll tie the camping thing from the phone into it as well. But you could do maybe somebody else could move into there. That would be interesting. And another thing would be to perhaps have a little cave where maybe a mole lives in there, or different animals that live underground, and that could be a different thing to do something with worms and different insects, and that would be in the cave. I'm not saying a huge expansive cave that you would have to go on an adventure with, but a little room or two that could be for specific new types of animals. I Now the next thing is something I really, really think would be interesting. As you can see here, I've got lots of different things. I think a new type of game center could come to town or be in the city or however they hook it up, and I would like to see, maybe you could be a part owner, or you could help it expand, and that way you'd get to play for free. Maybe that would be how you get your pay. And you could have actual pinball games that actually worked, and mini games that you could play that actually worked. Another interesting thing would be you could play against animals or people visiting your town. You could do bowling or darts or even play card games or video games and skee ball, different things that would have, and you would actually be able to play those games rather than just a little bit of animation and oh, that was fun. Um, uh, so I think that could be a big addition that would still be a lot of fun for the game. So I think I've gone over all of my 7 things there: the balcony, the outside furniture, patio or yard, having a back door, cooking, farming, a new building where we would learn those things, lots of new animals and items, and the ability to expand slightly, maybe have a slightly larger town. If you get too big, it's not easy to go from side to side, and it's just too much. And then the game center, which I think would be very interesting indeed. Um, so there's just all kinds of things possible. Here's a beautiful picture by Make Believe. I would check out his channel if I were you. He's got some incredible animation and detail, and I think this is actually possible with the new Switch. Uh, Boy, it would be great to see something like this. You want to keep it somewhat cartoony. You don't want realism. You don't want it to be realistic, but you want it to be more detailed in as much as the Switch would allow. And I think that's very possible to do that kind of thing with the new Switch. As you can see, this little picture here, camping out in the yard, and I think that would be a lot of fun to do. Now, my name's David Noe, and I have a lot of books that I've written, a lot of things that I do. I'd like you to check it out. In the description will be a list of my books. I like funny stuff. I've got as you can see, monster stuff and comic books and graphic novels and humor and horror and poetry and pulp and westerns. I do a lot of different kinds of stuff, and if you would check that out, check me out on Amazon, pick up a few books and write me some responses and what you thought about them. That would help a lot. And with that, this is David Noe, and this is my hopes and wishes for Animal Crossing and on the Switch in 2019. Thank you.